Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and please remember to press the like button to share this video or the channel. Please go and subscribe to the DPA IRL channel as well, and check out the description below. I don't know why nobody want to read it, and let's start. Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 161 and 162 for the 3rd and 4th of August. Within this report, there will be information, the latest information coming out from today, so please be mindful of that. So I need to delete some of the things. Okay, so let's start off with the Southern Front. On the Southern Front, interesting news. The Ministry of Defense of Russia's mapping is back. They finally adjusted back to match the beautiful coastline, and which means that their mapping is now can be used for reference again. And so here comes back the Russian pimples. All these pimples are back here. Very interestingly is that the Russian Ministry of Defense clearly marked that they have control over the entire road all the way until this until Performanske, where you can actually see on their map where this road goes downwards, and they marked that they have control over all this area, which is definitely of course disputed by whatever report that's coming out from the Ukraine Defense Ministry from time to time. Like for example, the Ukraine Defense Ministry will report bombardment at Kryvyi Rih, and this mapping is also not the same as what the pro-Russian source Rybar has mapped. So not sure if the mapping by the Russian Ministry of Defense is aspirational or is actually the reality where only they know better. So there is no more information about Andriivka, so I can delete it. Is clearly still under Russian control. Any information about Andriivka launching attacks or is being Ukrainian control is likely to be all fake news. So, and moving on to the Davydiv Brid Front. So yeah, why this one come back again? So the Ukraine Defense Ministry have reported shelling at Bilohirka, Lozove, as well as Andriivka. This is based on the latest information. You can see it's 5th of August, and you can see Andriivka, Lozove, and Bilohirka, which means that they have the previous report of them retreating is either wrong or the Ukrainians actually returned to this location. Perhaps the Russians didn't move in despite the report of the Ukrainians retreating from this position. Ultimately, it can be a trap because the Russians often do this. They retreat, and then when the Ukrainian troops move in, they got bombarded and they die. And then the Russians just move back into the position again. So maybe the Russians are just afraid of their own tactics. So they did not move in to take Andriivka, Lozove, as well as Bilohirka after the Ukrainian retreat. So the Ukrainians are back. So the mapping is now reflected as is. So let me refresh the page just to make sure that this change is reflected. Okay, good. So otherwise, I have no information about Davydiv Brid, but most likely my own belief is that it's under Russian control. So move on to the Kryvyi Rih Front. At the Kryvyi Rih Front, there is no more updates about Ulhaine. The Ukraine Defense Ministry didn't mention anything about this. And the fighting at Hryhorivka is also not repeated as well. The Russian Defense Ministry's mapping continued to map also Hryhorivka very clearly to be under their control, and in fact their mapping goes all the way to the border here, except that they did not claim control over Novovorontsovska. So and also other news, according to Rybar, which I didn't indicate here, the Ukraine Defense Ministry have redeployed at least 2 companies of tanks from Dnipro region to Kryvyi Rih. In fact, they also have been moving troops, I think from Chernihiv as well. From Chernihiv region, they want to move it to the Kryvyi Rih Front as well. So this is to prepare for a potential offensive over the next few days. This is information from Rybar, the pro-Russian source. So we have a video of 2 companies of tanks moving around this region. Not sure what is the exact location, but the pro-Ukrainian crowd is very happy about it. Seeing so many tanks moving along the road is quite cool, and I also think it's quite cool. So that's all from the southern front. Going to the Zaporizhzhia Line, the Russian Ministry of Defense mapping claims that Bilohirka as well as Mala Tomashka is actually under their control. The way they map is that this is this area. In fact, even Sharifne might also be under Russian control based on their mapping. The information about the fighting at Hryhorivka no longer is repeated. I think the fighting is no more. And so is the fighting at Novopil as well as Velika Novosilka. There is no more reports of all this fighting here. In fact, the Velika Novosilka one is from the 29th of July. I can delete it because it's been some days. The Neshkrusny one also, there's no more information about it. So maybe the fighting is no more. Moving on to the Donetsk front. At the Donetsk front, this is gone. There's no more fighting at Avdiivka. And there's reported offensive over at Marinka. So the Russian forces is now pushing Marinka. And then this is no more. So this is happening at Marinka. Over at Pisky, there's rumors of the Ukrainian forces retreating from Pisky as they are unable to hold this position any longer. And according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, they also acknowledge the fighting at Pisky. They actually put assault operation in 2 different directions, Lozove sense and Vesela sense. Sense is actually Pisky. And so one direction is from Vesela, one is from Lozove, which means that there's reporting fighting from the northern part of Pisky and southern part of Pisky, separated by this Stavok Poshkovsky. So according to some sources, they are saying that the Russian forces is now doing the mopping up to clear out building by building, perhaps to see if there is any Ukrainian forces around. But since the Ukrainian forces reportedly have withdrawn, this is no more. Okay, so the fighting at Vodiansk is no longer mentioned, so I delete it. The fighting continues at Avdiivka. The last report is by the Ministry of Defense of Russia. They mentioned that so this is a rare situation where we have Ministry of Defense of Russia talking about fighting at specific locations. So they mentioned that as a result of active offensive by Russian troops, as well as by the Donbass troops near Avdiivka, so they say certain Ukrainian units have lost their combat efficiency. So this is not important. This is just not important news. But that also confirms that there is fighting at Avdiivka. So moving on, there is no more news about the further northern front of the northern side of this Donetsk front, and we are now at the Bakhmut front. At the Bakhmut front, according to pro-Russian source Rybar, they claim on their mapping that Travneve has been captured by the Russian forces, and the last reported fighting is by the Ukraine Defense Ministry on the 2nd of August. And however, despite the mapping shows Travneve as captured, the way how they describe is that on their wordings is that they opens. So they say that the capture of Semihija and Dolyna opens the ability to capture Travneve. it is not capturing Travneve. However, despite that, their mappings do show that Travneve is captured. So tentatively, I do not want to commit to this. That's why I put a question mark, because Rybar's mapping sometimes are not accurate. Especially when it doesn't reflect with the way how they write, because they have their writing right on their post. When the post doesn't match the mapping mentions of capture sometimes is wrong. So, or sometimes it's just very very early, which is actually also considered wrong. So I will want to see an attack on Lozove. So if there is a fighting at Lozove, that means that Travneve is captured. Otherwise, we will remain this as a question mark until we can have further information to confirm. I know some of the pro-Russian crowd is very excited about this. However, this is still a small town, but I don't think we should commit to this just yet. So fighting reported at Zaporizhzhia on the 3rd of August. However, then we have fighting reported on Kodema. So this actually invalidates any more Ukrainian forces to be at Zaporizhzhia, as because according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry from the 4th of August, this is the 4th of August one, they say that there is a fighting in the direction of Novolohadske to Kodem. So it's this direction up. And then according to Rybar, on today's report, they say there's active fighting on the eastern outskirts of Kodema, so which is also here around this region. And according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, they reported that the attack against Veshyna come from two different directions. One is coming from the Vidrozhenia, and then another one direction is coming from Zaporizhzhia, which also double or triple confirms that Zaporizhzhia is actually under Russian control, which means that the Russians are actually conducting a pincer on Veshyna, and as you can see, and they purposely left them apart so that now it's not so obvious to the readers. This is by the Ukraine Defense Ministry. So Ukraine Defense Ministry have been really honest about all this fighting, and it's very interesting why they suddenly become so honest. And while the Russian Defense Ministry went to other direction, they do not report about fighting anymore. So fighting continues for Veshyna. They still not captured despite regardless whatever other sources says. The fighting reported at Zaitseve at 2nd of August is no longer repeated. So which probably is a misinformation, or they wrote wrongly. Or maybe this Zaitseve is actually not this Zaitseve, but it might actually be this Zaitseve, which actually does make sense. So why not we just move this down? Should we? No, because you see they are all reporting about the fighting around this region, but it says Travneve. Okay, never mind. Let's move this down. So this makes more sense now, rather than Zaitseve, because if not, there's no way for the Russian forces to actually reach Zaitseve without capturing Veshyna. So if the fighting at Zaitseve is actually referring to this Zaitseve, then or Zaitseve, if you want the English way of pronouncing this word, then this makes more sense. According to the pro-Russian source Rybar, reinforcement is now arriving at Vesela Dolyna. Due to the capture of Zaporizhzhia, the Ukrainian leadership have sent 5 battalions of territorial defense to be under the 58th Brigade. They are leading the defense in the area of Vesela Dolyna, which is around this region. So they are heavily reinforcing this area against the Russian forces, and which means that they also recognize that the Russian push here must be very strong, which is why they are sending so much troops. 5 battalions is a lot. So there is according to the Ministry of Defense of Russia, there's fighting reported towards Bakhmut, and we have the latest information that Russian forces have entered Bakhmut from the eastern side. in the area of the Patrisa Lumumby Street. So Patrisa Lumumby Street is this street, and the Russian forces have entered Bakhmut through this area in the eastern side here, and they are probably fighting over there now. So according to the pro-Russian source, they say that the advanced detachment of Wagner PMC managed to enter Bakhmut from the east in the area of Patrisa Lumumby Street. The assault in the city, which is a key link to the defense of the Siversk Soledar Bakhmut, has begun. So, which means that fighting has finally arrived at Bakhmut itself, the very, very important transport hub or resupply hub for the Ukraine Defense Ministry turned front line. So previously this was a very important place to as a major route for resupply. Now it's the front line on this fight. Fighting continued at Bakhmutske, according to pro-Russian source Rybar, and then now fighting is reported specifically at the Knuaf Gypsum plant. So according to Rybar, first they mentioned yesterday that the Russian units have come to the southeastern outskirts of the village, and fighting unfolded at the Knuaf Gypsum plant and the extra railway station. I cannot find this very extra railway station, so must be too extra. And then today's report, they said that the Russian forces actually successfully repelled a counter-offensive by the Ukrainian units. So in the area of the Knuaf Gypsum plant, so there might be a possibility where the Russian forces have already captured this area, this gypsum plant area, and which is why they can repel a counter-offensive. So let's move on from Soledar. There is, according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, the Russian forces is advancing from advancing on Yakovlivka from Veselivka, according to the way how they write it, Veselivka, Yakovlivka, which means that it is an attack from the east. So we previously understood that there is fighting from the south. So this could be another pincer on Yakovlivka. There is no more information about Bilohirka. According to Russian Defense Ministry's mapping, Bilohirka seems to be under Russian control. So, but of course, we cannot commit to any of these mapping claims by the Russian Ministry of Defense, because it tends to be wrong. The fighting at the western outskirts of Rostov was not mentioned anymore. However, Ukrainian okay, so no, so I remember wrong. So that's it from the Bakhmut front. Moving into the Siversk Front, Ukraine Defense Ministry continued to assert claims over the control of Spirne, Verkhnokamyanske, as well as Hryhorivka. You can see it's all double reports, because it's 4th August and 5th August. So they continue to assert on a daily basis that these three locations is under Ukrainian control. And I can actually also tell you that according to the Russian Ministry of Defense mapping, Hryhorivka might even be under Ukrainian control as well. Verkhnokamyanske and Spirne is probably also under Ukrainian control based on the way how they drew the mapping, maybe. But as I said, it's not very reliable, because the way how they map doesn't seem to be very tactically accurate. So it's very hard to tell. Fighting at Ivano-Darivka is no longer reported as well. So suddenly there is no more fighting on the Siversk Front, based on all the information that we have, which means that the Russian forces have all gathered only in the Bakhmut Front, and they are pushing only the Bakhmut Front. They are ignoring Siversk. So maybe the Siversk area might be a bit too hard to fight, which is why they are concentrating all on Bakhmut. Or maybe maybe Bakhmut now come into priority, because they need to do a massive hook, a flanking movement to the rear of this entire Donetsk defense line, and to capture Konstantinivka, so that they can force the Ukrainian forces around Toretsk, New York, to retreat away from this region, to so that Hryhorivka can be free of shelling, and then they can do this massive hook further south towards Pokrovsk and force Avdiivka and Avdiivka, Hryhorivka, Oleksandro Pil forces all these defense line to withdraw from their positions, because the biggest pressure now on the Russian side is the shelling on Donetsk city, and this is creating a lot of problems, especially when they throw the micro mine, the butterfly mine, or they call it the petal mine, all over Donetsk. And this is creating a lot of problems in Donetsk, because it's very hard to find these mines, and these mines are very easy to lay, because they can shoot using a grad launcher and shoot over Donetsk, and then they just release all the mines all over the city randomly. So because of this, I think the objective has changed. So instead of maybe capturing Siversk and Bakhmut, putting pressure on Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, I believe they might be changing their tactic to take Bakhmut, Konstantinivka, and then they actually go south and go to the rear, hook to the rear of the Avdiivka to force Avdiivka out, force the Ukrainian forces out of Avdiivka. And I believe this is the faster way to actually relieve Donetsk from massive shelling. So, but this is just my opinion. So moving on to the Izium front. Oh, I just want to say there is reports on the Ukrainian forces still having Sukhoi 25, I think, operating around this area based on Rybar, and also some helicopters, which means that the Ukrainian Air Force is still alive, but probably very, very few of them, since there's no reports of shutdown, but they are actually actively operating around this region to help out in the defense. In the Izium front, we have latest information over at Zaporizhzhia. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry released a video of their Ukrainian troops planting a flag at the Panyamnik Artemu monument. So they planted, they basically tied a flag to that monument, and it's on the high ground overseeing the churches here, the monastery here. So this actually shows that the Ukrainian forces actually have the entire southern side of the Zaporizhzhia, which is here indicated, which means that the Zaporizhzhia is no longer fully controlled by the Russian forces, as the Ukrainians are able to hold control over this region. And given that the Russians have put tremendous importance in this monastery, they are unlikely to shell this position or to bombard this position. So the Russian forces will have to find a way to flank it or encircle it. If not, then they can't do anything about this location. So, which then put into question the status of Tyanivka, because if the Russian forces are not holding this area, that means that Tyanivka might actually be under Ukrainian control as well. But let's see, because if not, resupply is still an issue, unless they have multiple pontoon bridges have been planted around all this region, which then also corroborates the fact that Pryshep and Sidorove is actually under Ukrainian control. So all is coming together, makes sense. The fighting over at Svyaty Hory National Park is no longer happening. No more reports of that. So I've deleted it. The Russian forces is now pushing towards Bilohirka. So from the direction of Dovhenke, which is actually from the west to the east. So that means, and I decided to cover back this entire area as under Russian control, because if not, then the way how the forces attack doesn't make sense. It doesn't crisscross, because there's another one reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry that the fighting is attacked. The Russian forces is attacking from Yakovlivka direction towards Dolyna. So which is Yakovlivka north to south. So this east to west. So I cannot have a cross in between and then there's nothing here. But there's a no man's land here. It's not possible. So this is all Russian control, which is then we can have this direction of from the Dovhenke area, from the west to the east, and then from the north to the south towards Dolyna. I also push up the Ukrainian front line to to indicate that Dolyna and Krasnopilya is under possibly under Ukrainian control, or is under Ukrainian control, because this mapping, this entire salient here is based on the Russian Ministry of Defense map, which until today is still is still showing that they have this entire salient all the way down to the north of Andriivka. So yeah, that's that. Fighting reported south of Mazanivka, no change. And then the Ukraine Defense Ministry reported shelling at Dnipro. So yeah, so or maybe they're just outside of Dnipro, perhaps. There's the fighting at Dmitrivka is no longer reported. So there's no more there. So the mapping of the Russian Defense Ministry continued to assert control over Velika Komishvaha. Then and this is also another one that is so clearly shows that on the mapping that they actually hold control here. But according to our known understood intel is that Velika Komishvaha is actually under Ukrainian control. So just put a question mark there. Over at the Bilohirka front, suddenly something is happening. The Russian forces is now attacking from Byrak towards Hryhorivka. This is reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry yesterday. So from Byrak here, they're attacking towards Hryhorivka. The interesting thing is that how this turned out to be a front on its own on my report, on the DPA report, is that the Ukrainian forces have been gathering around here to try to plan an attack against Bilohirka. However, end up is the Russians that are starting the fight, and this also surprised the pro-Russian sources because they themselves do not have this information, and then they actually got this information from the Ukraine Defense Ministry as well. So yeah, so the Ukraine Defense Ministry is the source for this. So I'm not pro-Russia. So anyway, at the Happy Front, this I have reported already, so I'm going to delete it. And fighting continues to be reported at Vesela. This is based on pro-Russian sources, Rybar, Boschova, and as well as Davydiv. So fighting is reported in these three locations. The fighting at Verkhnokamyanske is no more. And what else do we have? That's all. We don't have any much more updates on the Kharkiv front. Very quiet here. For the Russian side, all their concentration is now over in the Bakhmut area. So which is why we are not seeing much other actions around other places. So this is the summary for the entire 2 days of day 161 and 162, 161, 162 for the 3rd and 4th of August, with some information coming out from today for the 5th of August. And please press the like button, and please try to watch more. Don't skip too much, because the more you watch, the more the YouTube would believe that you love the video, and then they will actually share it to more people. If you skip a lot, then the viewing time is shorter, and then they will think that the video sucks. So then they will not share as much. This is something that I learned. Anyway, I'll see you in the next update.